morning. It is my absolute pleasure to be here today to welcome each and every one of you to our 11th annual gathering of United States veterans. My name is Veronica O'Malley. I'm an associate judge here in Lake County. I'm here with my partner and colleague. Where did he go? Here he is, Circuit Court Judge Michael Nierheim. It is our pleasure to welcome you here today. Now, this day is especially emotional and impactful for me because today I stand before you as the proud daughter of a father who passed away 10 years ago, and he served in the Army during the Korean War. I am the proud sister of a brother who served in the Navy in the early 80s on a frigate out of Pearl Harbor. And I am the proud mother of my youngest son, who was born 24 years ago today. Yes, he was born on Veterans Day. He decided to come early at 10.5 pounds. And then I fed him, and he grew. And he grew, and he grew, and he grew to 6'4", 280 pounds. And despite all the D1 offers he had, he chose to attend the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York, to play football. But then he stayed, and he graduated, because he, like all of our veterans, heard and answered the call to serve our great country so that all of the rest of us in this room and across our nation could enjoy the freedoms and the opportunities that their sacrifices created. I am very proud of my son. He serves as a second lieutenant this past year, and he is stationed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, home of Field Artillery, Rockets. And he just told me that because of the craziness in this world, the Army asked for volunteers. So he stepped up. And he will be deployed within the next 60 days to South Korea. I'm very proud of him. Now, thank you. As I previously said, today marks on 11/11 our 11th annual gathering of United States veterans, whose personal histories and stories will be transcribed today by court reporters to be sent and ultimately preserved for eternity in the United States Library of Congress. And a copy will be provided to each of our interviewees for their own personal archives. Our veterans to be interviewed today have served in conflicts since World War II. Our interviewers today are local judges, assistant state's attorneys, public defenders, and local attorneys, together with court reporters who are all volunteering their time because every one of them recognizes the importance of this project. So, without further delay, to get us all in the mood, I invite Officer James Perrin of the North Chicago Police Department to come forward and sing our national anthem. Please rise.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets for your service.
Please remain standing because I now invite the Lake County Young Marines to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Young Marines, follow it. Right. We'll now recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Left, face. Forward, march.
Please be seated. Now, this room is just filled with dignitaries. But today, they are not here for their own recognition. Instead, we want to keep the focus on our veterans. But there is one dignitary that I want to call forward because he's my boss, and he's also our fearless Chief Judge, Mark Levitt.
Good morning, everyone. Veronica's a tough act to follow, don't you think? Well, it's my great honor to be here today to welcome you and to be the first one to thank you for your service, your commitment to our country, and everything that you've done in the past. But while we're looking back today, we're also looking forward, because what we do here today is something that memorializes the past, something that provides a guidepost for future generations to go back, to look at the transcripts, to listen to your voices, so that what you went through in serving our country is not lost, but preserved forever, and a lasting tribute to you and a lasting tribute to your service. So on behalf of our nation, on behalf of our 19th Judicial Circuit, I want to be the first one to thank you. Thank you for being here today, thank you for participating, and most of all, thank you for your service. And it is my great honor, we'll keep Veronica in the wings for just a moment, to introduce our County Board Chair, who is gracious enough to be here this morning, Sandy Hart.
Thank you, everyone, and good morning, and happy Veterans Day. I'm really pleased to be able to be here today to join you on Veterans Day to thank and honor the service of our veterans. It's so important that we do this, to remember the stories and to be able to hear them, as Chief Judge Levitt just said, so that we can go back and hear about those experiences, both good and bad, about what our veterans went through when they were in service. And I had the very special opportunity to do that with two veterans myself, two Lake County veterans. And it's just a real joy to be able to go back. One of them was a very dear family friend, and to go back and still be able to hear his voice in the Library of Congress and hear the stories that he had to tell. And I especially want to thank our former Chief Judge, Fred Foreman, who brought this project here to Lake County. I don't even know how many stories we've heard over the years, but I just think it's such a special thing that our 19th Judicial Court does. And I don't want to say it's for the veterans, it's really for us. It's for those of us who haven't had an opportunity or to know what it's like to have served our country, and so that we can really reflect on everything that our veterans went through when they were serving, and to hear about what it was like before they went and what it was like when they came home. So thank you so much for spending time here today with the people who are going to hear your stories. Thank you for offering them up to the rest of us so that we can listen to them in the Library of Congress. And thank you so much for your service, not just to us here in Lake County, but the United States and really the world, because the United States has that important history of being a defender of freedoms around the world, and our veterans here today were a part of that. So thank you so much, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Chair Hart. I think before we move on, we need to give Officer Perrin another round of applause. He sang the national anthem through a fire alarm and didn't skip a beat, so good job. And none of the deputies or staff around here look nervous, so I think we're okay to stay. So it's my honor to introduce our speaker. And Colonel Hedrick works here in the courthouse, among other things, and when I was looking over his bio, I realized quickly that if I read his whole bio, we'd be here till about 2 o'clock this afternoon before we got started. So I'm not going to do that, but I do encourage all of you to take a look at his bio because it's incredibly impressive. I've read some pretty impressive bios, and I don't ever remember seeing anything like this. So I'm going to read you a very abbreviated version of his bio, which is still somewhat long, so please bear with me, and then we'll get to his talk. So U.S. Army Reserve Ambassador for Illinois, Mr. Paul Joseph Hedrick, was mandatory retired as a colonel with over 30 years of service. His last assignment was commanding officer of the 451st Sustained Command Expeditionary, a brigadier general command. His highest award is the Legion of Merit, 1 Oak Leaf Cluster. He is recipient of the General Winfield Scott Bronze Medallion, Civil Affairs Regiment, and the Honorable Order of St. Christopher Medallion, Transportation Regiment. He is branch qualified in civil affairs, psychological operations, signal, transportation, and medical services. He has 19 additional skill identifiers. His overseas missions include Canada, Germany, Korea, Macedonia, Poland, Turkey, Djibouti, and Uganda. He completed 5 combat deployments in Kuwait, Iraq, Bosnia, Kosovo, and the Horn of Africa. He mobilized for Operation Enduring Freedom to command the 451st ESC. He commanded at all levels from Special Forces, Airborne Detachment Commander, 12th SFGA, to Army Component Commander, and is a Joint Qualified Officer Level 3 with ASI 3L. He assured me you guys all know what all those abbreviations mean. He was awarded 3 U.S. State Department Meritorious Honor Awards by Ambassador Christopher Hill and received 2 Bronze Star Medals, 2003 and 2010. He was recognized by Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner as an Honor 200 Illinois Bicentennial honoree in 2018, and among many, many other awards, he received the College of Lake County Alumni Recognition Award in 2021. As I said, I could go on and on and on, but you don't want to hear from me, you want to hear from Colonel Hedrick. So, sir, please come on up.
Well, good morning. Well, I was going to ask you if everybody can hear me, so let me try that again. Can everybody hear me? Excellent. Good morning. Well, good morning, and thank you for being here today to observe Veterans Day. We come here together today to honor and recognize service members past and present. It is important to note that Veterans Day is for the living, not the dead. We have Memorial Day in about 6 months to mourn those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for their country and their comrades. Veterans Day originated from the signing of an armistice, a temporary cessation of hostilities on Monday, November 11th, 1918 at 11 a.m., when all fighting ceased between the Allied forces and Germany, ending World War I. The following year, President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed November 11th, 1919, as the first commemoration of Armistice Day. Quote, "A day filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in this country's service and with gratitude for the victory," unquote. In 1954, following World War I and the Korean War, Congress replaced armistice with veterans, officially commemorating every November 11th, a day when all veterans of all wars are honored. From the Revolutionary War to today, Americans have volunteered to serve in our armed forces of the United States. For many veterans who fought in these wars, our nation was important enough to endure long separations from families, freeze in sub-zero temperatures, sweat in the humidity of jungles, or bake in the heat of the desert. Unfortunately, and often, these veterans suffered physical wounds from bullets, shrapnel, and from my war, improvised explosive devices, IEDs, or ultimately the loss of life. Some suffer from emotional and mental wounds, such as post-traumatic stress, PTSD, or moral injury. Our military is the most powerful in the world, with sophisticated technological and advanced weapon systems. However, what makes us different? In our military, we consider our greatest asset to be our servicemen and women. With our common commitment to defense and love of our country, which binds us together, unifies us, and goes to the heart of what it means to be an American. As a nation, we must ensure that the service and sacrifice of our veterans is never forgotten or overlooked. The military believes that every service member is a service member for life. As Americans, we must be committed to ensuring that their success continues both in and out of the military. The United States now has the largest population of young veterans since the Vietnam War. Nearly 3.5 million post 9/11 veterans. That's about 1% of the total population. Nearly 2/3 of these veterans served in Iraq, Afghanistan, or both of these theaters. Many of these veterans who made it home cope with some form of disability. These Iraq and Afghanistan veterans have the highest percentage of suicides, averaging 17 a day. On a personal note, and I don't like speaking about myself, I don't think it's appropriate, but I was honored and privileged to have served 5 combat tours for our nation. 3 tours in Iraq, 1 in Kosovo and Bosnia, and 1 in the Horn of Africa. And if I had my way, I'd still be serving, but I got retired. However, sometimes I wonder, like I think many of our combat Afghanistan and Iraq veterans, was it worth it? And I don't mean was it worth it to serve, we know it was worth it to serve, but was it worth it with regards to the wars that we fought? Did any of our senior leadership or politicians read our after-action reports when we expressed concerns about downsizing the peacekeeping mission in Kosovo in 2005 when I was there? Did anyone learn from how difficult it was to turn over bases and to slowly leave Iraq in 2010 when I was assigned as part of our State Department? Let us ensure that we never repeat the unnecessary deaths of our 12 Afghanistan servicemen and women who died on August 28, 2021 in Afghanistan. But we as a nation must go further. The Vietnam War lasted over 10 years, a war which history considers was lost. Our Vietnam veterans returned home to a country which barely acknowledged their service and sacrifice. We fixed that, although we can continue to do better to encourage and continue to recognize our Vietnam veterans. The war in Iraq officially ended in 2011 with a final retreat of our forces driving Humvees and MRAPs back to Kuwait, the same border that I crossed the first day of the war, March 19, 2003, in a Humvee. The war in Afghanistan officially ended on August 28, 2021, with an embarrassing, disastrous retreat, culminating in the death of 13 servicemen and women. So I pose a question for thought. How will these Iraq and Afghanistan veterans be acknowledged, and what will we remember them for? Each year in our great nation, we celebrate Veterans Day and pay tribute to our veterans for their patriotism, sacrifice, and selfless service. So I'm concluding the speech with a passage from President Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural address, which he delivered on March 4th, 1865, as the Civil War was ending. I was very fortunate. I attended the Army War College to complete my master's in strategic studies, and I had the option to take one of my elective courses, and the elective course I took was on Abraham Lincoln and leadership. So this is always one of my favorite quotes by Lincoln. Quote, "With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." So let us keep President Lincoln's words alive and serve today to never forget our veterans and those injured or who have died in service to America. So I debated about this because I usually like to have just a speech and then conclude. But I'm going to deviate and I'm going to talk from the heart. And most colonels don't have a heart. We're not supposed to have a heart. So just for me to say that, anyways. So 2001, I built a house. I was single at the time in Antioch. 2002 came around. My unit knew we were going to be going to Iraq, so we started building up for training and so forth. But when I came and built my new house, I had a wonderful neighbor. His name was John Trinka. He was a World War II veteran, lived right across the street from me. Always commenting on, perhaps you could do this, or you may want to fix this, and as I was up on the roof doing this, you should do this. Anyways, we had a wonderful friendship. And at the time, I was with a civil affairs unit in Homewood, Illinois. By 2002, Christmas Eve, my unit got activation orders, and I was single at the time in this brand new house. So I said to John, I said, you know, my parents live down the way. My brother is with the 101st. He's going to war. I'm going to war. Can I leave you a key and just watch my house? Between my various deployments, John and I grew quite close as I would come home, briefly take leave, redeploy, come home, redeploy, come home, redeploy. By the time I came home from my final deployment in East Africa in 2014, John's health was getting worse. And we had shared many moments, as many combat veterans perhaps do, where the horrors of whatever occurred in the wars that we fought, we sometimes have no interest in talking about to anybody other than perhaps my generation, a battle buddy or another veteran. So often John and I would sit on either his deck or at my place, perhaps over one too many glasses of Crown Royal, and discuss or talk about experiences from the war. And for some of us, that's where we find that ability to perhaps discuss things that we never want to discuss with anybody. I come from a military background. All my generations of relatives have served in every single war. My father's a psychologist. So when my brother and I came back from the war, the first time in 2004, my father is a PhD and psychologist and author who had also served, I had been born in Fort Jackson, was trying to perhaps understand the changes of the sons that left in 2003, but came back in 2004 differently. Anyways, as John and I continued, it was 2015. And I said to John, I saw the ad for the history project here. And I said to John, I said, you know what, John? You got to tell your story. You got to tell it for your generation. You got to pass it on. So I said, let's go to this thing. I will take you there. I'll hang out. And when you're done, you know, we'll go out. We'll go out for lunch or something. So John, being the way he was, this stubborn World War II veteran, had to make a deal. He's like, I'm not going unless you're going. I said, John, I'm already going. I'm going to drive you there. I'll hang out. I'll eat food. It's all going to be good. He goes, no, you do it because I'm doing it. All right, deal made. So my intention at the time was to come in here with John. He can go do his thing. I'll show up for 15 minutes, take off, and hang out. It didn't happen. So on November 11th, 2015, I completed what you guys are getting ready to go through. It's 59 pages. It lasted an hour and a half. The interviewer was a Thomas L. Myers. The court reporter was Annette Cesario. I keep this in my safe. And I hope that someday that I will perhaps give this to my parents before they're too old to perhaps understand some of the things that occurred that are here, but not here. And I also hope someday that my 12-year-old son, who I missed the first 5 years of his life, perhaps someday he will have the opportunity to read this and perhaps understand where I was for those 5 years. I want to take this opportunity to really praise the work that our VA system does. I'm in the VA system. I'm sure many of us are here in the VA system. They do an incredible job in trying to reach out to us to ensure if we have any needs, both physical, emotional, and so forth. I'm one of those that, like I said, I'm a colonel. I'm not going to speak about anything because we don't have a heart. But I will say that this experience here in these 58 pages was not my intention. My intention was to go and start talking. But as I told the judge, and we were discussing before, we were trying to figure out what judge was here in 2015. When I walked out after an hour and a half, and John walked out a couple minutes after me, I said to the judge, I said, Judge, I went in there to support my friend John, but I came out with you guys helping me. And for me, this was a life-changing event because although I did not talk about many things, I probably never will, but this was a start. And sometimes a start is the first step towards healing. So today, for all of you here, I've seen in the program so we have people from Korean War, the Vietnam War, World War II, Iraq, Enduring Freedom. So I don't know what experience you will have, if nothing else, as I think the judge mentioned, it's that opportunity to tell your story. And the story needs to be told. And perhaps it's going a step further for someone like me as well, where it was more than just telling a story. It was a first step in perhaps therapy and healing. So in conclusion, I hope that you have a wonderful experience today. I credit everybody that's involved with this project. I continue to praise this project at the VA and with every other veterans organization I'm involved with. So please have a wonderful experience. In conclusion, veterans, please stand. You have done your duty. You have served with distinction, honor, and integrity. You have ensured our freedom and our security. We appreciate you. We remember you. We thank you. God bless this audience for being here. God bless our veterans, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you for those remarks. Thank you for your service and your continued service. On behalf of Judge Smith, Judge O'Malley, Chief Judge Levitt, and all the judges of the 19th Circuit, I want to thank you all for being here and participating in today's event. There's some folks I also want to make sure we recognize before we, most importantly, recognize the veterans that are here that will be interviewed this morning. So first, the Freedom Farm for Veterans, the United States Marine Corps League Tri-County Leatherman Detachment 1395, HEAL Team 6, Gold Star Families, Lake County Honor Flight, Lake County Veterans and Family Assistance Service Foundation, Quilts of Valor, the court reporters from all different counties, Lake County Bar Association, the Lake County Bar Foundation, the Lake County Public Defender's Office, the Lake County Sheriff's Office, the Lake County State's Attorney's Office, Lake County TV, the Lake County Young Marines, the Veterans Treatment and Assistance Court. We also can't forget Lorena Hernandez, our assistant, who makes a lot of things happen. And her daughter, who's here helping out today too. I want to recognize, you will all receive packets from some young people from various schools in Lake County that wrote you letters, and I want to recognize those schools: Beach Park School, District 3, John Clark Elementary School, Fremont Elementary, Killdeer Countryside Community Consolidated District 96, Stanton Middle School, and St. Gilbert Catholic School in Grays Lake. So now, the reason we're here. I'd like to recognize and call the name of each veteran. Now, normally I would ask everybody to hold their applause till the end, but I think we shouldn't do that. I think we should recognize each veteran individually as we proceed. So first, serving in both the United States Navy and the Marine Corps, Dr. Boone Brackett. Serving the United States Army, Harry J. Brown. United States Army, Larry D. Brown, Sr. United States Army, Leonard Dubin. Great name. U.S. Navy, James Justice. U.S. Army, John Kirshner. United States Marine Corps, James Soroka. He couldn't be here this morning because he's sick, but U.S. Marine Corps, Joseph Steinfels. U.S. Navy, Esteban Trujillo. We also unfortunately had a World War II veteran who has COVID, so let's keep him in our thoughts. He couldn't be here, but Lawrence Vanier from the U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force. United States Navy, Stephen Ware. United States Navy, Anthony Warren. That's the list I have. I hope I have everybody. Did I miss anybody? Because that would be really embarrassing. All right, I'm glad I didn't. Okay, so we're almost done. We're almost to the important part. So before we proceed to the courtrooms, you're gonna go with the person that's interviewing you to various courtrooms around the county building here. Please grab some water. If you have a family member that you'd like with you, they're free to come in the interview room if you would like. But before we do that, we're gonna take a photograph right behind me on the wall. But before we do that, and before we close out, I'd like to invite up Investigator Daniel August from the Lake County State's Attorney's Office, who is going to sing God Bless America. Thank you again, everybody.
God bless America, home that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America.